control button, and you may begin. Thank you.
Jackie, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We have a lot of good information for you. It's going to be a brief overview of how to do business with the city because actually the information in itself, a lot of the information that we're going to present today has a workshop in itself, but we're going to try to get you as much information as possible so you have an overview of how to do business with the city. As Jackie stated, my name is Brittany Mason, and I am an attorney with the Department of Procurement Services. So what we're going to go over today is an overview of the department. We're going to talk about the laws that govern the procurement process. That's a state statute and the home rule authority of the city called the Municipal Code of Chicago. We're going to cover some procurement terms, the type of procurement. We're going to go over the different types of certification, although that is one of the presentations that has a workshop in itself. We're going to touch on how the city monitors contracts and compliance on contracts. Compliance refers to the minority participation or participation on the residence ordinance or equal employment opportunity ordinance. We're going to list the programs and bid incentives that we have. That is another one that is a workshop in itself. We're going to go over some things you can find on the DPS website. And at the end, I will address questions and provide answers if I'm able to. DPS is the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the city of Chicago. What that means is if individual departments do not have authority under the municipal code, they must come through procurement to procure goods and services. We work together as a team with our customers. Our customers are city departments to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. The laws that govern our process. The first law is a state statute. We call it the Municipal Purchasing Act. It's found in 65 ILCS. If you don't know what that acronym stands for, that's Illinois Compiled Statutes. It's in Chapter 5, Section 8-10-1. The state statute is what governs the city's procurement practices. From that state statute, the city developed its own home rule authority on how to procure. And that's in Chapter 292 of the Municipal Code of Chicago. Where the state statute does not trump any city purchasing requirements, we follow the Municipal Code of Chicago. Some terms that you will hear when it comes to procurement. The first term is bid package. The bid package is your set of documents that the city issues and advertises or solicits for your goods and services. So it's all documents included in that package. Addendum. Addendum is when the city changes city requirements as it relates to that particular bid or solicitation. An addendum is issued to everyone who has picked up a bid package. Because we're doing everything online now, it will issue an addendum to everyone that has signed on to iSupplier. That's our e-procurement system. You will hear the term contract. Contract is the ultimate agreement that you have with the city of Chicago, that a vendor has with the city of Chicago for the goods or services. Contracts take a number of different types of forms, and we will talk about those forms of advertisement for those contracts. Amendment or modification is another term. That is what formally changes the terms and conditions of the contract. So it's not the addendum, because the addendum changes the requirements of the actual solicitation. The amendment or modification will change the terms of the final contract. There are also several forms of amendments or modifications to a contract. One you might hear often is called a change order, and that occurs in a construction contract. Our types of procurement. We have a small order procurement. We have competitive sealed bids, request for proposals or RFPs, request for qualifications or RFQs, and job order contracts, which we call the job. Our small order contracts are when a city department is procuring goods that are less than or equal to 250,000. The Nbwbe, which stands for Minority Business Enterprise and Women Business Enterprise Compliance. If the solicitation is over $10,000, we require compliance on those contracts if it's applicable. Small orders or bid solicitations, there's formal bid solicitations that are greater than $250,000. That's your bid. We advertise those in the Tribune, the Daily, classified section. We also post those on our e-procurement site at the city. They would be able to be found in the bid and bond room in City Hall, room 103. But again, that's when it's open to the public. We have been doing everything virtually. The bid solicitation period is within 10 to 30 calendar days. Some bids may require a deposit. If a deposit is required, it will be shown in your bid documents. Pre-bid meetings. You'll look in your competitive bid documents and you may notice a clause that says there's a pre-bid meeting. Depending on the type of solicitation it is, it may include a site inspection of the work location after the pre-bid meeting. You want to check your solicitation documents closely to determine if this is an optional or mandatory requirement. What you do at a pre-bid meeting, you have the opportunity to review the specification. You have an opportunity to ask questions and receive answers to address concerns regarding the specification. And when it's optional, bidders' attendance is strongly encouraged because you can get a lot of information that you need to respond to the solicitation through the pre-bid meeting. It might result in an addendum, which we previously discussed, or a clarification to the bid documents. What a clarification would be is it doesn't change the terms of the solicitation. However, it will provide you with more insight on information within the solicitation. If there is not a pre-bid meeting, as I said before, we strongly encourage you to attend, but if you cannot, read the specification and contract documents during the open solicitation period. If you have any questions, contact the Department of Procurement Services, the contract administrator over the contract. You will see that person's name in the bid advertisement, and you will also see that on the bid document. So if you have questions, you want to contact the administrator. Bid document. Make sure you fill in everything that's required. All information that's required to be filled in, fill it in. You also want to be sure that you sign and execute the document. If you don't sign and execute the document, then you don't have an agreement. If there are certain bid documents in there that the solicitation requires you to submit, you want to submit it at the time of bid or your bid potentially be rejected. And lastly, with signing and executing your document, you want to make sure that it's notarized. Sometimes there's a deposit or a bid bond that may be required. This won't exceed 10% of the contract amount, and it has to be submitted in the proper form. Cash is not one of them. All bids have to be timely, submitted, and on the bid opening date. Because things are going through the e-procurement system, and you may not be familiar with the system or you may run into technical difficulties, please give yourself sufficient time to submit a bid so that if you have to contact the administrators for assistance or the division who helps with technical difficulties, you'll have ample enough time to do so. Bid opening days are Monday through Friday, except any major holidays that we have. They're open at 11 a.m. Location is currently virtual online due to COVID-19, but usually it would be in the bid and bond room 103 at City Hall. During the bid opening period, we're going to have the bids opened and read out loud. The bids will be tabulated to determine who on its face is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And then the bid tabulation and bid documents will be reviewed for accuracy and completeness. If you want to view those bid tabulations, they will be available online at DPS's website 24 hours after the bid is actually opened. The award process. Once the bids are open, they've determined that those bids are accurate, they submitted, and they determine whether or not the bidder is responsive and responsible to be awarded the contract. If they're determined to be responsive and responsible, the department will make a recommendation of award of the contract. That contract will be packaged up. If there's a performance and payment bond required, any insurance or funding agency requirements, all of that information will be obtained at that time. The bid and contract documents are then routed through what we call a signature or approval process. You will see on the bid documents, it has to be signed by the CPO, the mayor's office, and the comptroller. And the contract is ultimately in a bid awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder that meets the needs of the city's specification. Request for proposals. This is another competitive solicitation process, but it is not a competitive sealed bid. With a competitive sealed bid, as we previously discussed, the terms aren't changed in the sealed bid. You sign on to that, you propose your pricing, and that ultimately becomes a contract. A request for proposal is used to implement a new project that requires professional services. This is when the city doesn't have the in-house technical expertise or resources to implement that project. They create an RFP. They generally define their objectives, the scope of services, but they don't detail every aspect to implement the services. They don't do this because they're relying on the expert, those individuals that are proposing on the contract, to provide that detail on how they'll implement the project. It goes through a detailed evaluation process. An evaluation committee is put together to review the proposal, and it's based on certain criteria. That criteria will be laid out in the RFP document. Unlike a bid, low price is not the only factor. So award in an RFP scenario is made to the highest rated and ranked respondent instead of the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Rfqs, or request for qualifications. It's another method that we use in this case to solicit companies with certain types of qualification. They have a certain degree of technical expertise and knowledge in certain disciplines. In this solicitation practice, what we do is pre-qualify companies, and we create a vendor pool that will respond to task orders, individual projects in the future. Evaluation and selection under this solicitation is based on qualifications and technical competence. You will likely find this in our A&E design contracts, certain areas of consulting contracts. There's no cost proposal for A&E RFQs. A fee schedule is negotiated later as part of your master consulting agreement. The job order contract. The job is a competitive bid. There is a firm fixed price. It is competitively bid, and there is indefinite quantity in terms of the services to be provided under the contract. We use this contract to accomplish small to medium-sized construction projects. And instead of having to bid out every small or medium-sized job, we develop the plans, or the department develops the plans and technical specifications that are needed in the job contract. General contractors are then solicited and they respond to the advertised specification, what the specification looks like. There are services laid out in the job. Also included in the job is a unit price book. In the unit price book, there are various construction tasks with a description of the construction services, the unit of measure, and a unit price for each task. The services in the job contract, I'll go back, is bid on by providing normal working hour times and outside of normal working hour times. So you bid a percentage weight on those hours. That's how you bid on the job contract. Economic disclosure statements. In all our solicitation, just about all of our solicitation requires an economic disclosure statement. You provide the economic disclosure statement online. You do an online EDS. Some contracts will allow for a paper EDS, but you'll be notified of that. What the EDS addresses is disclosure of ownership. Online completion of the EDS is mandatory for most of our solicitations. Who has to fill out an EDS? It has to be the applicant or the individual that's applying for the city contract, as well as any legal entity which owns more than 7.5% interest directly or indirectly in the applicant firm. They also have to file their own EDS for the contract that the applicant is bidding on. Moving on to certification. We at the city have 6 types of certification. You can be certified as a minority business. You can be certified as a women-owned business. You can be certified as a business enterprise owned by people with disabilities, a disadvantaged business enterprise, and an airport concession disadvantaged business enterprise, as well as a veteran-owned business enterprise. The eligibility requirements are basic against all categories. You have to be at least 51% owned and controlled by qualifying minority, women, veterans, individuals with disability, or other disadvantaged individuals. Businesses must also be small businesses. Businesses must be independent and quiet. Nbwbe, DBE participation is governed by 2 sections of the municipal code and 1 section of the Code of Federal Regulations. 292-420 governs city minority-owned and women-owned businesses for all contracts that are other than construction. 292-650 is for construction contracts. 49 CFR represents Code of Federal Regulations. Part 26 is regarding disadvantaged business enterprises on federally funded projects. In our city contracts, we require Nbwbe participation. The departments do their research to determine which firms will be certified to perform services under that contract. EPS does an assessment of that research and they put certain goals on the contract that the prime contractor must meet. The Nbwbe or DBE and sometimes DBE veterans, they have to perform a commercially useful function under the contract in order for the prime contractor to get credit for those services. Commercially useful function means that the contractor, the subcontractor under the prime contractor, has to be responsible for the execution of a distinct element of the work of the contract, which is carried out by actually performing, managing, and supervising the work involved, or fulfilling responsibilities as a joint venture. A contractor will not be entitled, this is the prime contractor, a prime contractor will not be entitled to a reduction or waiver of Nbwbe vote during the performance of the contract, after there have been substantial completion of the contract or at contract closeout, unless that contractor has in writing requested that the CPO reduce or waive the contracting goals. If you're seeking a waiver or reduction of an MBE or WBE goals, you have to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the CPO that you have made good faith efforts. If you look at your contract documents, you will see a form called special conditions. The special conditions will lay out what the contract goals are. It will lay out how the relationship between the Nbwbe has to be with the prime contractor under the contract, as well as what happens if you don't meet your goals, what you need to provide to show that you made a good faith effort to reach out to Nbwbe to participate on the contract. Contract monitoring and compliance. The city procurement monitors the utilization of minority and women firms and disadvantaged business enterprises that are listed as subcontractors on the prime contractors compliance plan. We also ensure that prime contractors are complying with the Chicago Residency Ordinance and the Equal Employment Opportunity Committee. The Chicago Residency Ordinance is found on construction contracts of $100,000 or more. That's funded by the city. What that requires is 50% of the total work hours have to be performed by residents of the city. And then 7.5% of the total work hours have to be performed by project area residents. The project area residents can also count as actual city residents. Equal employment opportunity. The goal here is to promote equality of opportunity for minority and female personnel on city-funded construction contracts. Again, that's $100,000 or more. It's a canvassing formula. The canvassing formula is capped at a certain usage amount on the contract, and that's just for calculation purposes. But bidders are invited to propose minority and female utilization goals above the cap on the contract. How do you achieve compliance on a contract? You can be a prime contractor who's an Nbwbe or DBE. You can joint venture with an Nbwbe or DBE, or you can subcontract out a portion of the work to one or more of those entities. You can purchase materials that are used in the performance of the contract from one or more Nbwbe or DBEs. Prime contractors have to submit monthly subcontractor payment certification forms, weekly certified payrolls, as well as waiver or liens. Those are the reporting requirements. The city has a number of programs and bid incentives. Those programs are the Small Business Initiative, the Mid-Sized Business Initiative, and all of those are related to construction contracts. If you do the Small Business Initiative and Mid-Sized Business Initiative requirements, those contracts are solicited to just those entities. In the non-construction NBI program, only mid-sized businesses provide bids to non-construction contracts. We have our diversity credit program. We have our target market program that is not utilized for non-construction. That is not utilized for construction contracts. I'm sorry. The target market program, those contracts are awarded only to Nbwbe. We have our mentor protege program where the prime contractor on a contract or a subcontractor can mentor another subcontractor to develop their services on the contract or in a particular area of expertise. We have our Nbwbe phase graduation program. That's where you enter into the city's Nbwbe program, but you become established so you're able to graduate out the program. And there's a phasing for graduating out the program where you will still be able to get Nbwbe credit as a sub on the contract. Bid incentives. We have our veteran-owned business, enterprise, and small local business incentive. And again, these are a lot of incentives, but there is a workshop that speaks specifically to incentives. You have your veteran-owned subcontractor utilization, business enterprises owned by people with disabilities, You can be a city-based manufacturer and get an incentive on the contract, city-based business, apprentice utilization, ex-offenders, and CPS CCC graduates, alternatively powered vehicles. The mentor protege program is also an incentive program. Project area subcontractor, the equal employment opportunity. They have an incentive to encourage utilization of Nbwbe. If it's determined on a contract, there's no set goals, there's no stated goals for the use of Nbwbe. We have an incentive to encourage individuals to use those entities. We have our diverse workforce and management incentives. And we have our enhanced reporting requirements by executive order. What this does is contractors have to submit projections as to when and to what extent they expect to use these certified firms. If they don't meet those plans, they have to provide an explanation and a recovery plan. There's also the diversity program piece where contractors that have agreements with the city, including redevelopment agreements, are required to submit annual reports of their business diversity programs or their lack thereof. You have to include information as to expenditure on goods and services from minority-owned firms and women-owned firms during the prior calendar. TPS website. What can you find on our website? You'll find all contracts that we've awarded, any modifications to those contracts, what we paid vendors, our bid tabulations, any type of weekly bid opportunities that's available can be found on our website. If you're looking for who are some of the minority and women and disadvantaged firms that have already been certified by the city, there's a directory for that. You can find all of our bid incentives, what's required, those rules and regulations surrounding the incentives, and other regulations involved in procurement. You can also get access to our e-procurement site. And I will turn it over to Jackie for any questions.
Thank you so much, Brittany, for that wonderful presentation. And we now open the floor up for questions. There are a few questions, so I will get right to it. The question was, what is a CPO? I think I can help answer that one, a Chief Procurement Officer. But you can add to that, Brittany, if you'd like. I mentioned her name in the beginning. Brittany?
Yes, can you repeat that question? I missed it.
It was, what is CPO?
Oh, yes, Chief Procurement
Officer. And her name is Eileen Velasquez. Is this just for construction, meaning the construction summit? No, the 5 user groups that will be presenting at the construction summit are going to talk a little bit about their departments. So we have the Department of Transportation, the Department of Water, the Department of Procurement Services, and the Department of Aviation, and the Department of Assets, Information, and Systems. Those 5 departments are going to talk a little bit about their department, and then they're going to talk about some of the opportunities that they have that are hot right now, whether they're in construction or non-construction. So we say that the summit is a construction summit. So yes, we'd like to harp on more things that are related to construction, because this is the construction period in time. And there's a lot out there for construction, but they talk about all opportunities that they have within their departments. How do you define a small business, Brittany?
I don't have the exact figures on the small business right now, but I could If you contact me, Jackie, is my email?
Sure, I can get that after. If the person would like to put in my chat, their directly to me, your email address, I will definitely pass that on to Brittany. If there are any other questions, we'll take those questions now. And while they are queuing up their questions and typing them out, Brittany, do you have any last words that you'd like to say before I close it out?
Thank everyone.
I can't hear you.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to sit in on our presentation. And I know that it's a lot of information, but again, if you contact me directly, if you have very specific questions, I can provide those answers to you. If you want more information about the incentive programs, they're online, but we also, Jackie can let you know when the next time we do a workshop on that. Certification does workshops to provide more detail. Jackie can provide you with those information. You can also find it on our website or through GPS alerts.
And I would also add to that, I spoke about if you joined us late, I spoke about the resource guides in the very beginning of the presentation. We have resource guides out there. If you go to chicago.gov/DPS guides, you will get a copy of all of the resource guides that we have dealing with all of the process. So we talk about the contracting process, the bids and the incentives and programs, the certification, and then the compliance process. So if you go there and start your information gathering at that point, you might find that you'll get all the answers that you need. If you have further questions, there's when you go to our main website, the chicago.gov/DPS, you will see a lot of icons there. If you just click on those icons, it'll take you into different areas where you can get some more great information. And then last but not least, as Brittany says, if you have very specific questions that you need answered, you can reach out to Brittany or DPS events, and we'll get them answered for you. I don't think that there are any additional questions at this time. So I am going to put one thing though in in your chat area for you today. I know that people sent me specific emails asking where can I find a copy of this presentation and where can I find the recordings. So I just put up where you can find those things. I would take those links down and check back periodically with us because we post these copies of the workshops and the recordings as soon as we can. With that said, I will say to you, thank you, Brittany, for the presentation, Procurement Fundamentals, Doing Business with the City of Chicago. And I want to thank the participants for stopping by, as Brittany said, to hear our presentation and to impart information that you can use. If you can't use it at this time, feel free to pass it on to someone that you feel that can benefit from it. We definitely want to say to you, stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, social distance, wear your mask, do whatever needs to happen so that we can all be in one room so you can network with us face to face sometime in the near future. So we say to you, thank you for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Jackie.